Hello there in MMA land. Eddie Mercado here. I am joined by Mr. Vic Rodriguez. How are you doing, sir?
I'm sensational, man. I mean, after that last fight, yeah, I'm in much better spirits. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kid Nate cannot be joined with us. Zane Simon cannot be joined with us. Chances are they're out doing things together, perhaps. But we are here for the sixth round, and we had an interesting night of UFC fights. It was off to a super, super slow snail of a start. But, man, did it get capped off with so much excitement. Justin Gaethje made his UFC debut after all this time. Looked like he was going to get finished off, but he toughed it out, came back, and got the second round TKO. What were your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I really don't like the fact that he's continuing to take this much ungodly punishment. And he really looked like he was about to not necessarily get finished, but start to have that opening for Johnson to really pour on more pressure and finish the fight. But it just didn't happen. And I don't know if what that says necessarily, I don't know if it necessarily says much about Johnson not being able to win that fight, or really just the fact that Gaethje is just that tough to put away and is able to hit that hard, even when he's in zombie mode. So what we basically saw was, yeah, a super exciting fight, definitely one for the ages, possible fight of the year candidate just based on insanity and everything alone. But I really got to start worrying about Gaethje at this point. And if anybody was wondering why he was getting such a tough matchup, and I mean, I don't think I'm not sure the payouts have been released yet. But when they do come out, I think some people are going to be surprised. And well, they might not be too surprised after a performance like that. This guy was making thick money in World Series of Fighting because he was fighting in this manner, and I suspect that they're going to treat him well and bring him on with tougher opposition as he goes along in the UFC.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's only going to get harder from here. You take out Michael Johnson, the number 5 guy. I mean, it's only big fights, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start talking about him for a title shot. Lightweight is really the worst place to be for a title shot.
Listen, one more fight like this, and he's pretty likely to get a title shot. Of course, it is lightweight. There is still a bit of a logjam at the top. The McGregor situation, Ferguson in limbo, and Khabib, still out. Now that Ramadan is over, he'll probably resume his training. Who knows what's going to happen? But given that little weird triangle at the top, he might eventually get a title shot. It's just going to be a while.
Yeah. I mean, what a performance. Epic performance, tons of heart on display, epic chin on display, and he just kept coming forward. And Johnson, he really had a smart game plan. Like, he really came out and tried to take it to Gaethje right away, make him feel like he doesn't belong in the big leagues. And I mean, he was doing really, really well off the bat, but he came out a little too hard, I think. And then Gaethje just constantly coming forward as he's eating shots is tough to deal with. It's like you're fighting the Terminator out there. And, man, he just Gaethje'd him. Like, he straight Gaethje'd him. You know what I mean? So, exciting from Gaethje. You got to worry about his longevity, and you have to worry about the guys at the top of the division who can, strike with precision and won't gas out. But, I mean, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to see where he goes from here. But moving on, the co-main event of the evening saw the Ultimate Fighter Season 25 finale come to a head. The Jessie Taylor, who we remember from Season 7 of The Ultimate Fighter, he actually got the boot for his conduct. After all this time, he finally makes it. They stroke him a check for $290,000, choking out Diego Lima.
Diego, yeah.
Diego Lima.
Yeah.
It was more exciting than I thought it was going to be quite honest. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with Lima's ability to survive on the ground and try to at least make the initial moves to work his way out of bad position. But Taylor was just so experienced and so good, not just with his strong wrestling pedigree, but just the way that he's adapted it to MMA. I mean, he was good in his original run in The Ultimate Fighter. And now he's looking this much better now. I mean, he didn't lose the show on the show and before. It wasn't a matter of him being kicked out because, it was what you mentioned. It wasn't his fighting. It was his conduct. Who knows what could have happened to him, what kind of success he might have reached at that time. But life kind of had other plans, and he basically paid the price for his actions. He's grown. He's fought internationally. He's faced some really tough opposition. And taking on another striker like Lima, as dangerous as he is, it wasn't something that he hadn't seen before. And I think I actually had picked Lima for this one, but I'm pleasantly surprised. As much as I like Lima, very happy for Jessie Taylor, and hell of a performance on his part. Even though he got dropped in that second round, but he was still able to make the most of that after it happened. So big ups to him, man. That was great.
Yeah, he ate the left hand at the beginning of the second. I mean, right away, Lima drops him with the left hand, but Lima follows him to the ground, like into Taylor's wheelhouse. Like, why? Why would you do that?
Some guys are just that confident in their ability, and they think maybe, I've hurt him this much that I can now go to the ground and have lesser there's going to be a lesser chance that you pay for these consequences. You know what I mean? The stakes aren't as high because now the guy's stunned. But then again, I don't know. I'd have to ask him. I can't read his mind, Well,
let me ask you this then. Does Taylor win another UFC fight?
Oh, come on. Absolutely. Look, welterweight is pretty populated. And, I mean, he's not going to be getting top 10 guys off the bat. You know what I mean? So, he did get the big check for winning the competition.
Hold on. I don't believe Taylor's getting anywhere near a top 10 opponent ever, personally. But
all right, well then, I mean, by that logic, you're leaning more towards my end of the pool here. Like, I'm just saying, he's probably not going to be beating up the scrubs at the bottom, but he's going to be probably towards the middle of the pack. And I think there's a bunch of guys there that he will be able to handle. How he does from there, well, that's yet to be seen. Is he championship caliber? Probably not, at least not now. But
no, he's not. But it's like, he looked good beating Diego Lima, but I mean, I honestly, I'm not even putting any stock into that. I honestly didn't even pick any of these guys to win this fight because neither of these guys are trustworthy, in my opinion. So, I mean, I feel like this is the peak. This is the pinnacle for Taylor, in my frank opinion. I don't think he's going anywhere else from here.
I mean, look, that's entirely possible, but by that same token, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the road necessarily. I mean, this is a massive accomplishment for him, a big feather in his cap, and true redemption of all of the people on the show. Wow, of all the guys, it had to be him. But no, I mean, he'll finish off in a respectable manner.
It seems like his Super Bowl. He just won his Super Bowl.
Hey. That's good.
Well, moving on, let's talk about Mark Diakese. His hype train took a little hit thanks to Drakkar Klose picking up the split decision. Crazy, kind of weird injury, leg kicks, foot stomps going on. What'd you think of the funk in this one?
Well, I got to give Klose a lot of credit here for being super smart with the leg kicks and timing them absolutely perfectly. To really disrupt Diekese's rhythm and be able to affect his mobility to a point. I don't think it was – I mean, it certainly wasn't the most clear-cut victory. I mean, I think the split decision was probably the best. I could see the case for Diakese winning the fight. I'm not mad at the decision in any way. And that's really all it was, man. Listen, for Diakese, this is nothing more than a stumbling block. I really don't think that this is going to be something that sets him back tremendously, even in a division like lightweight. These are both guys that are, they're not towards the middle of the division yet. These are guys that are fairly new to the UFC, relatively new to the UFC. So they're kind of working their way up from the bottom. It's not the worst thing that could have happened. A loss for either one of these guys is not necessarily an indicator of their overall skill nor potential. So, it's just a matter of, hey, listen, we'll see what happens next time. As for Klose, he's got a great team with him, a very smart crew working with him and around him, and he fights smart. He's still got a very great – he's got a great skill set to be able to survive and move up in that division. I just got to wonder what happens 4 or 5 fights from here. But, he's just going to have to take it one day at a time, and really there's no rush to either one of us to find out.
Yeah, I don't think this is too big of a loss for Diakese. It definitely is a setback, definitely kills some of the hype. But I feel like Klose really zapped him early with those leg kicks and the foot stomps. I think that really took a lot out of Diakese, and I just think he wasn't really sure how to adjust and get himself back into the fight until the third round. So I feel like he was doing really good to start out the first, and then once the leg kicks and the foot stomps were going down, he kind of was defensive a little bit, even through the second. And then the third, he kind of threw caution to the wind and started connecting a bit, but it was too little too late.
Well, I mean, I'll just briefly say this here, just my last thoughts on this. But, I don't think that Casey's hype is really going to lose that much steam looking at how exciting he can be and some of the flashy stuff that he did in that fight that actually ended up connecting, even if it didn't have the potential to end the fight. So, how much does he really lose in this? I don't know. It's just, I don't really think.
Hopefully it's a learned lesson and he'll come back stronger. And
yes.
How about Krause getting on the microphone and claiming that all English dudes are bums? That was crazy. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected that. That was, come on, really? We really going to generalize like that? Like, come on, man. That's just pouring salt in the wound after you beat a guy. Whatever.
It's like borderline racist, right? You're walking a line there, bro.
No, hating little people, that's racist.
Anyways, so to a more exciting bout, we had Jared Cannonier, the Killer Gorilla, put on an absolute striking clinic against Nick Rourke. I mean, Cannonier picked him apart like a talent agent. Like, he just absolutely, oh man, this Rourke absolutely did not look like he belongs in the UFC, which is, I guess, why he was on Dana White's fight night looking for a whatever coming up on Tuesday.
The Contender Series.
There you go. Yeah. And man, what a tough step up. This is worse than when Cannonier fought Glover. Like, this was a beating. This was a savage beating from bell to bell. And Cannonier looked great. He looked top 15, if not top 10. And I mean, where would you put Cannonier after this? I mean, he did exactly what he was supposed to do here.
Let's look at this. Just to briefly take a step back here. You're looking at a guy in Rourke, who stepped up on, what was it, 3 days notice, I think it was?
Yep.
Okay, so, I mean, what really can you do? And not only that, but I remember when they were doing the lead-up before the fight, before they even walked out or anything, they're doing the backstage footage and all that. I look at Cannonier because I didn't see the weigh-ins. I'm like, dude, that guy looks lean. Like, he was looking slender. He's out there. He looks like he's in great shape. His cardio held up the entire time, and he was throwing heat. Like, his mobility wasn't affected at any point, nor was his ability to dish it out. So, I mean, this guy really looks like he can be a very considerable threat. I do agree that he looked like a guy that would be in the top 15 or top 10. I don't think he's there yet. Obviously not with a win over Rourke. But I do think that he has the makings of a guy just based on skill and the way he's progressed since his last fight. Seeing the improvements and how big that jump has been, not just in his physical talents, but the looks he was getting, setting up some of the hand traps. The head movement was pretty good. Watching how later on in the fight, as Rourke was getting tired, he was just ducking shots, moving side to side and getting in his face. There was a lot of great things that I saw from this fight here with Cannonier. So I like what he's doing. I like where he's going. He does need a bit more polish, but he's getting there, man. This was a hell of a fight, a much needed talent infusion in that division.
Yeah, he really seems like he's making all the right decisions to become a top flight competitor in the UFC. He recently quit his full-time job with ample benefits. He's relocating to Phoenix, Arizona, training at the MMA lab. I mean, he's really doing the right stuff. And I mean, he's talking about fighting at 185, which is absolutely crazy. And if his power translates, holy shit. Like, if he goes to 185, I mean, that's going to be a big problem for big people. But I mean, if we look at the top 15, I mean, would you pick any of those guys to beat Cannonier? From 10 to 15?
Man, all right. Let me just take a brief look here. I don't know about him going to 185, if that's necessarily a good idea. And I do kind of worry about that gamble of him losing a job like that with benefits and a possible pension. That's bold, man. I don't know. I mean, probably. Damn. I mean, Tyson Pedro could give him some fits, and Patrick Cummins at number 11. Pedro's ranked at number 12 right now. Patrick Cummins with his wrestling might, but Cummins kind of forgets he's a wrestler until he gets hit in the head once, and then by that point he's probably wobbly.
The beautiful thing about that, though, is Cummings is about to fight Pedro, so perhaps the winner can get Cannonier.
So that's what I'm thinking here. Or it might be that. I don't know.
Oh, actually, I lied. Latifi is fighting Pedro, and Vellante is the one fighting Cummins.
Yeah, Vellante ranked at number 13, fighting Cummins at 11. Yeah, I mean, I can see Cannonier easily fighting the winner of either one of those fights, but I don't know. I mean, who knows what's going to happen from here to then? If either of those guys will be ready. This is the most clown shoes and yet amazing sport ever, so who knows what will happen. Maybe he won't even fight one of those guys in the top 15 just yet. But he's definitely going to get a step up. I know that.
He's exciting, too. I mean, he really puts on a show, like dropping his hands, doing his whole Terminator come-at-you thing, and, like, the way he cuts angles and throws his hooks.
Yes.
My hat is off to this Rorik guy. I mean, he really ate a lot of heavy shots. Yeah. Like, his bell is going to be ringing for at least a week after that. It was crazy.
I was looking online to see if people would be upset with the stoppage. It doesn't seem like anyone was really mad at that. That seemed like, no, I'd say that enough. He wasn't getting out of that.
Definitely not. And, like, you don't want to see someone like that take, like, a severe beating unnecessarily, who's debuting when they're not even supposed to really be there, fighting someone so high up that they really shouldn't be in there with. So
the fight game.
Tough guy, but yeah, the fight game. So moving on, that brings us to Brad Tavares showing up. He took on Elias Theodoro in a decision. The fight happened. Any takeaways from this one?
They were both really handsome guys fighting each other and punching each other in the fucking mouth. You're welcome. Next.
What'd you think of the scoring? You think Tavares picked up the decision in that one?
I'm not really sure, because the thing is that the way I've seen both of these guys fight and how heavily they lean on guys, and then seeing Theodoro doing a lot of the controlling and all that, and then the fact that I believe that this event did not have the new rule set in place. Am I correct in that? Okay.
Right. Vegas.
I mean, shit. Look, the difficult thing about this is, and what makes it such a problem for me to answer that, is the fact that you never really know what these judges are seeing, and nor what they're really placing a higher priority on. So, maybe some of them will score or will consider a takedown with not much in the way of follow-up striking. They'll still see that as a bigger deal than what it probably should be. I don't know, man. Especially judges in Nevada. I don't know what to. I don't know if I can really criticize the way that one went.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge grappling exchanges where there's no damage being inflicted or any submission attempts or
any major
aggressive passing or.
Right. No major reversal or anything like that. And besides, like, escapes and reversals aren't really scored either way. So, like, you could hit the most beautiful sweep in the world after being in a world of trouble. It's still not going to net you any credit on the judge's scorecard.
Just like slipping a punch. You slip a punch, it's like, okay, you slipped a punch, but that's defense, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that fight, it happened.
Yeah.
Speaking of fights happening, Jordan Johnson picked up the unanimous decision over Marcel Fortuna.
Yeah, after
fight.
Yeah, I don't know. After that first round, I thought we would see more of what we saw in the first round, and I'm surprised we didn't. Johnson just sort of stopped wrestling after a while, and then the fight just was what it was. So
yeah, it was real sloppy. A lot of winging punches, and I think Johnson earned the decision. I scored it for him. And Fortuna, he gives me like this JDS vibe. You know how like JDS is always trying to just set up this uppercut, or he's always trying to set up the big shot, but if he doesn't, then the fight just doesn't really go his way.
Yeah, he's also got the thinning hair up top, so that he's got the same pattern of baldness that JDS used to have is pretty much evident in him as well. So, yeah,
the hairlines are similar, but it really was a stinker. And
Yeah.
it makes me feel sad for 205, to be quite
Yeah,
honest.
you also gotta remember. I mean, and man, guys, I say this, and you know, I know it's an old adage. It sounds like a stupid cliche, but it's actually true. Styles make fights, and unfortunately, these were two guys whose styles were not conducive to an exciting fight, and that's just the reality of that. It's the opposite of what we saw in the main event. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Boring. Anyways, Angela Hill, she picked up a unanimous decision over Ashley Yoder. Hill is must-see TV in my personal opinion. I love watching her. She is the personification of effort. Like, she is all about it. She has been fighting people who have been in the game way longer than she has. She finally gets an opponent somewhat on her level. And I mean, I feel like she really showed up. She's fun. She's got mean little leg kicks. Her cross was stiff and hard. And Yoder just, after that like initial takedown, she was almost afraid. It seemed like she was so concerned with the cross of Hill that she didn't even bother setting up the takedown.
Well, I got to disagree with you on one thing here, and it's the fact that you mentioned fighting someone who's on her level. I really do think that Hill was on the level of Jessica Andrade. It just wasn't a fight that went her way because
Really?
Andrade. Look, Andrade had a really smart game plan, and that was a fight that Hill could have won. But that's another matter entirely in a separate debate. I'll be glad to have that with you at some other point.
Well, yeah, I mean, Hill was fighting up to Andrade's level, and still it wasn't enough.
Well,
I see it. Kind of see what you're saying.
It was a close fight, and it could have. Well, all right. Either way, but look, as far as this is concerned, here you're talking about somebody in Yoder who is more of a jiu-jitsu submission grappler, not so much the offensive wrestler, with the blast takedowns or anything like that. Striking was going to be an issue, and Hill was really going to be able to style on her, and she kind of did for a lot of those exchanges. I got to give Yoder credit for being super scrambly. The Spider Monkey nickname is very apt. Excuse me. I think it was in the third round where she started climbing up like she was like Hill were a tree again. She did it twice in the fight, if I remember correctly, where she was just really tangling her way around, but she wasn't able to capitalize on it. Big ups to Hill, not just for being even sharper with her striking, but even better with her defense when it comes to grappling. And a lot of those exchanges, Yoder was a day late and a dollar short. And, it's just it started to feel like Hill was just going to be able to tee off on her. To Yoder's credit, her head movement, or at least her movement in general, was good enough that Hill did have some difficulty finding that chin when she was hunting for it. But other than that, yeah, man, I mean, it was very clear as to who won that fight, and for good reason. And Hill got that one all the way. This was the kind of performance I expected from her last time, but, it is what it is, just a different kind of opponent.
Yeah, what I really liked about Hill was that she really listened to her coaches mid-fight. Like, she would be on the ground, and her coaches would be like, get all the way out, all the way out. And she would listen. She would back up and let Yoder to her feet. Or even when she was on the ground, she would put her hands on the mat, and her coaches were like, get your hands off the mat, do this, do that, step by step. And she would listen. Like, very coachable. She's got potential. She's definitely she might be a little overrated in terms of skill set, but in terms of effort and coachability, I think that will carry her a long way until those skills catch up.
I think she's a little underrated in terms of potential. I think a lot of people don't really see how far she can go. I mean, she's got some growing to do in her fighting, but she's still done so much and made so many strides. If you missed the Invicta run, I really highly suggest you watch her stint there and then see kind of what it is that we're talking about. See her progression from one fight to the next and what kind of performances she was putting on, because that again, it's like you just said, it's must-watched MMA. She was really out there and earned a lot of respect there for that reason.
Yes, fun to watch. Hopefully she'll make some waves at 115.
Yeah,
right,
so let her wear her damn costumes next time.
So moving on, we had James Krause pick up a unanimous decision. A lot of decisions on this card. A lot of decisions, unfortunately. This fight, okay. Tom Galicchio just doesn't seem like UFC caliber material. Seems like a good guy. I'm sure he's got some grappling skills, but this was an absolute clinic. James Krause just danced around him, jabbing the absolute shit out of this guy. And I felt like James Krause was sandbagging here. It's like, what? Like, Krause has been around forever. Like, he left the UFC off of 2 wins to go to he got injured and then went through the Ultimate Fighter house. Like, I just didn't understand that. I feel like he's putting himself in a position with guys who are not on his level, but maybe that's because I think Krause is better than he is, maybe? Like, has Krause really gotten that much better from when he first showed up on the scene? Or is he kind of like the same guy?
The thing with Krause is he didn't even have to be on the show. He did it because he wanted to prove to himself that he could do it. And, I guess that's kind of fine. And the thing with Gaethje is that you look at the way that he fought on that show and the way he was winning fights that he probably wasn't supposed to win, and he was sort of that plucky underdog who was just pulling rabbits out of a hat on some of these fights. You got to feel for the guy at this point, right? And the beating that he took here, I don't think, again, is he UFC caliber? Well, what does it mean to be UFC caliber? Like, we could have
I'll tell you.
Okay.
What it means to be UFC caliber is I don't feel bad for you when I see you in the octagon. If I feel bad for you and I feel like I'm fearful for your safety, you don't belong in the UFC. Like, that's
a bit of a
like, if I'm concerned for your health,
look,
like, come on.
Look. Let's take a step back here and look at it this way. You and I both know that there are guys that are in the UFC that have no business being in the UFC. And I'm not just talking about guys like Ron Stallings. That guy's gone. I mean, there's still guys today, right now, that you look at and you go, probably shouldn't be in the big, if you really are the elite organization, that guy probably still shouldn't be there. And
Tom Galicchio is that guy.
No, man, listen, you got to remember, here's a guy who is coming back and trying to make his way in. I still think there are some matchups that I don't want to say necessarily they're favorable. He can still beat a few guys and put on some fairly entertaining bouts. And if you're a grappling head like me, you might want to see a guy like that get another shot. Now, again, that's not to say that he's going to be a Hall of Famer and go out there and rack up a 10-win streak or anything like that. But I'm not really that offended by that whole thing, although I do feel bad that he got pieced up by James Krause. But then again, he got pieced up by James Krause. Like, that guy's really, really good.
But who's James Krause piecing up, though?
In this fight?
No, in life, like period, in general.
Prior to, I mean, you know what, man?
People who don't belong in the UFC.
Okay. I mean, look, he hasn't been fighting top 10 opposition and beating them up, but he's given some of these guys a run for their money, some of the higher dudes that he's been fighting. But then he's also been, knocking off some other dudes that some folks might have thought he should not have been competitive against at some point. So I don't know. It's one of those weird things where, again, he's not like a top 10 guy or anything like that, but he's far from a scrub, and he's a hell of a lot better striker than Gaethje. So this really shouldn't have been that surprising.
I think it's just surprising that for me that Galicchio's even in the UFC. That's the big surprise to me. But I'm
not mad at all. Listen, when you do what these guys did in getting to the Ultimate Fighter after all this time by racking up some crazy wins outside of the UFC, and they end up on the show and actually notch some wins, I'm not really mad if they bring him back in for a fight or two. It's whatever.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, so moving on, another decision. CB Dalloway, unanimous win over Ed Herman. Grueling fight. Both guys kind of had their moments. Very lackluster, though. There was some blood and some good ground strikes, but, I mean, it just wasn't a pretty fight by any stretch of the imagination. From what I hear, James Lynch actually reported that CB Dalloway was taken to the hospital right after the fight, so hopefully he's okay. These guys, man. Well, Dalloway snapped a 3-fight losing skid, so good on him. I was convinced he was going to hop ship to Bellator with Ryan Bader, but I guess he's going to be sticking around. And Ed Herman picked up another loss. You got any comments on this fight? Anything to add?
No. It
Yeah.
happened. Listen, I mean, it was a grueling
No,
bout.
you said way more than needs to be said.
It's the
But
fight game, man. Not everything is going to be awesome. It's
but
what it is.
speaking of awesome, Tisha Torres picked up a second round submission over Juliana Lima. Tisha's very first finish in her professional career. So bravo to her. Man, she's tough, man. She really is tough. And this was a short notice fight, I believe. Right? She didn't
I don't exactly. I know that she replaced Amanda Ribas, who had been flagged for a USADA violation. But other than that, um, I don't know how short notice it was. But yeah, I mean, it's great performance on her part. I thought it was going to be a decision. I didn't see Tisha finishing this, and she did. And excellent, great for her.
it was
Good to see
nice.
her come back with that. So good.
Torres came out with a flurry. Lima didn't like it. Ill-advised shot. And Tisha immediately transitioned to the back, sunk the rear naked choke. The first finish on the card, which was not indicative of how the night would go with all these decisions, but definitely a fun fight. Tisha, showing why she is one of the top 5 strawweights in the UFC. The question is, where does she go from here? You have Jessica Andrade and Carolina Kovacevic both coming off of losses to Joanna Champion. She could fight Rose for the 3rd time, maybe. But she called out Michelle Watterson. So where does she go from here?
She might get the Watterson fight, or maybe pop in as a late replacement for some other bout at some point. I don't know. She didn't really take that much damage on this one, so I'm not really sure. I don't know, man. I'm not that great as far as the matchmaking department goes. If anything, she'll probably end up, with her luck, she'll probably end up fighting Calderwood or something like that.
Yeah, it's I don't, even with such a impressive finish, I don't think she'll leapfrog into a title shot. But
no. It's looking a little crowded up there anyway right now.
It is.
So I don't know.
The top of the strawweight division is a little bit clogged. But good on her, though. She seems to be going through a little rough thing. She had a close friend pass away, so good to see her getting some positivity flowing her way. All right, so the card opened up with Gray Maynard looking like his old self. Turns out he can actually wrestle. He picked up the unanimous decision over Teruto Ishihara. Interesting fight. Gray Maynard just grinding away. Ishihara, really trying to get back to his feet and almost doing it, but just really not having much there. And when he did get back to his feet, he was too busy trying to counter the takedown with a knee, which if it worked out, it would have been cool, but that's I don't know, man. Ishihara is upsetting me.
Yeah, it's frustrating to watch a guy like that. And I just don't know. I mean, you train a team alpha male, so you can't say that you didn't have any wrestlers in your camp. I don't know what kind of game plan that was, or if he wasn't following the game plan that they had set for him. Yeah, it's frustrating to watch, but I mean, I guess that's good for. I don't know how good this is really for Gray Maynard. Like, it's good to see him get a win, but
it's good to see Gray get a win.
He probably should have retired like 4 or 5 fights ago at this point. I don't know, man. I just don't like seeing him out there for this reason.
I feel like this solidifies his spot as the gatekeeper for the young guns coming in, right? So Ryan Hall got through, Ishihara did not. So that's kind of where he is right now. And Ishihara has been on the wrong end of domination back-to-back fights. Lobov outstruck him on the feet, and then Maynard just absolutely smothered him for 15 minutes straight. So I think Ishihara needs a can. He really needs someone who is not a veteran.
I don't know what it is that he needs, but he's like approaching that Maximo Blanco territory where he's capable of putting on amazing what the hell moments out of nowhere, but it's frustrating to see him still be relatively stagnant with his skill set and sort of not adapt very well to actual formal MMA, things that aren't those crazy moments and those wild random scrambles. So,
his whole shtick is almost a double-edged sword, because it's like, oh, he likes to party and chase women, and that's cool and all.
Yes,
but
yes, it is.
when you're not performing in the cage, it makes
Wow.
me question your dedication and how seriously are you taking this? Like, what are you doing here? Are you trying to be the best? Are you trying to get notoriety and go fuck bitches? Like, what are you doing?
Hey,
I'm starting to.
hey, you saw that thing you posted on Instagram? No more bitches. UFC say no. Hey, you, no more bitches. He said it himself. He said it
Hey,
himself.
he can say it all he wants, but until he starts winning in the octagon, I got to start questioning his dedication. I hate to say it, but it is what it is. But damn, that fight! It was a shitty yet accurate way to kick off a decision-heavy card. But luckily, the main event came through. Justin Gaethje showed up big time, picking up the second round TKO of Michael Johnson after almost getting finished in the same second round. Awesome debut for Gaethje. The sky's the limit. I mean, the world is his oyster, man. He's cloud nine. Him and Trevor Whitman and those guys, they're doing it right now. So kudos to him.
That oyster is taking years off the back end of his career, man. Maybe his life, like I said in the predictions. I'm worrying about him taking on a Tony Ferguson or something later on. I don't know, dude. I don't like seeing him get pieced up like this.
I mean, I've spoken to Gaethje in the past, and I've asked him about that, if he's concerned with the longevity and eating so many shots. And I mean, he just don't care, man. Like, he's just
he did show some better defense. Like, he shelled up a lot more than we'd seen him ever in World Series. And I know you've seen those fights because we've actually done vivisections for those before. So Jesus, but still, man, I don't know. I don't like seeing a guy get wobbled that much and then still I know what we're signing up for as fans, but after a while, man, you got to protect these guys from themselves.
Yeah, but you know, his style works. It worked. He just took out the number 5 guy in the world by being tough as shit and coming forward.
It's working until it don't. So we'll see what happens when he hits that wall, and I hope he doesn't hit it too damn hard.
Well, he sounds like an intelligent man, like as far as his finances are going. So, you know, if he's doing this to make some coin for his family and to provide, and then, you know, sacrificing himself for that, then, you know, that's his choice. That's his prerogative. If he was going to come out and keep putting on these fights, you know, people are going to keep tuning in, and people are going to keep throwing money at him, and, you know, and what is stand-up dude? Like, he's not out being a dickhead, and like he's not causing trouble. Like, he's in the gym training.
Yeah, I guess.
Solid ambassador to the sport, in my opinion, anyways. But yeah, so that's the card, the Ultimate Fighter 25 finale. Jessie Taylor, he picks up the UFC contract, 290 G's in his pockets. Do you have any closing thoughts on this card?
No, I'm glad it ended well and that it ended relatively early with this Fox Sports 1 pacing and the way that the schedule's worked out as of late. So it's whatever. We're just going to get up tomorrow morning, do it all over again for 213. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is. All right, well, on that note, you can find both of us on bloodyelbow.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheEddieMercado. You can follow Vic on Twitter at VicMRodriguez. If you like this show, smash the thumbs up. Stay away from the dislike. Just thumbs up. Even if you didn't like it, give us thumbs up. Tell us why you didn't like it in the comments. Talk shit in the comments. Tell us why you love us in the comments. Ask questions.
Talk about my business.
Share this video with your friends, your enemies, everyone. And tune back in tomorrow night, because I will be joining Zane Simon for the 6th round for UFC 213. That's Nunes versus Shevchenko 2. And co-headlined by Yoel Romero and Robert Whitaker for the 185 interim title. So
the people's title and the people's main event right there.
Yeah, until then, tune in, bloodyelbow.com, MMAnation.com on YouTube. That's DOTCOM. I'm Eddie Mercado. Vic Rodriguez. Be a good person.